This is not Sea of Stars. This is Star Ocean, the second story R. So for people who are, this is the Nintendo Switch frame rate test. If that title wasn't confusing enough, this is the second game in the Star Ocean series. This is the remake, the Switch PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4 remake that was released in 2024. And this game got re-released on the PlayStation Portable. It was originally released on the PlayStation 1, which I owned. Never made any videos out of it, but what are you gonna do? It was before I started recording YouTube videos. I did buy the PlayStation Portable remake that was released way back in the early 2000s, which cleaned up some of the graphics, but it was mainly like a cleaner version of the PlayStation 1 game, as far as I'm aware. And then there's this game, which was the next-gen high-definition remaster, but I guess this is why it's called Second Story R. This is actually a game that like I said, I owned it when it launched on the PlayStation 1. This is the soundtrack that made me into a Sakuraba Motoe fanboy. Unfortunately, it's also not a good game. Let's just put that out there. I played like 50-some hours of this game, and I managed to get the soundtrack unlocked by getting my hands on a Dex drive. And probably the best investment I ever made was buying a Dex drive and going on the internet and downloading a game save so I can rip the music on my own. I did a series of videos about the PlayStation 2 demo that dropped earlier in 2024. It's actually not a very good... Well, it's a decent demo in that it shows you a curated portion of the first 2 hours of the game, but I think you're on a 2-hour clock. And as I recall, we're not autosaving. We're gonna skip ahead to a game save where I got the first 3 characters. So we'll go backwards to the beginning for this particular frame rate test. You get to see how the game looks and runs on the Nintendo Switch using a retail copy. The box says a download is required. It says it requires at least a 3 gigabyte download. I have not downloaded anything. Although I want to say if you're playing the game, you have a choice at the beginning of the game between Claude and Reina here. Can we show them? I'm not trying to do that. Just a second. Yeah, it explains how the stats work, which is, from my experience, it doesn't matter a whole lot. It might adjust some of your strategies if you're speed running or playing the game on the hardest difficulty level, which is not available at the beginning of the game, as I recall. But there are some strategies later in the game where you might want to pay attention to that. I personally don't think it matters very much, based on the original game. It might have been rebalanced since then, obviously. At the beginning of the game, you have a choice between Reina here, who I've chosen, and Claude. Unfortunately, when you start the game as Claude, there's a combat section that I'm not able to clear out because I can't do any damage to the enemy. I don't know, it might be a bug. But when I play the game as Reina, the game works just fine. So we'll see how it goes. Toggle portraits. That's from the Star Ocean PlayStation Portable remake, I believe. That's from the original game. I'm not a huge fan of the artwork in the original game, but it's fun. But I think this remaster does a better job with I think there's slightly better artwork here. Oh yeah, I want to show you Claude used to look in the original game. That's from the PlayStation Portable remake. And that's from the original game. Worth noting that there were no animated cutscenes with human beings in the original PlayStation game. The original PlayStation game used... what was it? Yeah, the original Hold on. That's the PlayStation Portable remake. That's the original game. And that's this version. As I recall. Yeah, wait. Really? Yeah, that's right. Okay, I was right. Okay, I was right. Alright. What was I thinking of when I was playing this? I don't know if there's a bug in this game that prevents me from playing the game as Claude without downloading a patch first. I don't know. We'll get to that later. Worth noting, in case you're wondering, it's an action RPG from 1998, I believe it was, based on the title screen. Worth noting, The game has traditional 20th century Japanese RPG trappings. There are towns, there's an overworld, but unlike the original game, which had blind random encounters, you have enemies that appear here on the map and you can avoid them, which is a fantastic improvement over the original game. I do not remember if the PlayStation Portable version had this, but it's notable for people like me because I was not a fan of the old school way of doing things, because the old video games were about blind encounters. You wander around the overworld like this, and then eventually the game will randomly spawn a fight. I'll show you the fighting a bit later. I just kind of wanted to show you the overworld. I want to say the frame rate's 30 frames a second here. The pop-in is not great. I want to say the PlayStation 4 version looked a lot better. By which I mean, when you're in some of the town areas, the perspective changes. Not the perspective doesn't change, but the backgrounds look a lot better. So I would say the Switch version is using, obviously, less detailed models. So when we go to the first area of the game, which is the Shingo Forest, I believe it's called, it will have some very ugly-looking polygons in the background. So I'd say the PlayStation 4 has a... how do I say this? Whatever the LOD value is. Basically, how much detail appears in faraway objects. I want to say it's better on the PlayStation 4 version. They dialed it back here. It still looks better than the original game, obviously, because the original game was based on Final Fantasy VII-like visuals for the PlayStation 1. 2D sprites with pre-rendered CGI backgrounds that look kind of like Killer Instinct and Donkey Kong Country and, of course, Final Fantasy VII. Because that was the usual way of making an RPG in the PlayStation 1 era. If you were a AAA RPG back then, you were using CGI backgrounds like Resident Evil. Because that was the way a lot of these games were developed. And nowadays, we're getting a lot of games like this. This game was apparently developed by Gumdrops, I think it was called? Gumdrops. And they're doing this Octopath Traveler thing, where they, the tilt shift, where they're doing Octopath Traveler, 3D Dot Heroes, which I played on this channel previously. They take these 2D sprites and let them wander around these dynamic 3D areas. It's called 2.5D because everything here is based on sort of like a diorama look, which I kind of like. I generally like the way this stuff works. It's an acquired taste because I know some people don't like. Some people don't like the lighting and the weird polygonal graphics that are used for the backgrounds usually. I'm generally okay with it. And I think this is probably I think if you look at games like this and Live Alive, and I have now played Octopath Traveler, Link's Awakening on the Switch did this too. I'm a big fan of this particular look, but I admit you probably don't want this for every 20th century remake. You probably wouldn't want I don't think this should be like the standard, I think, for all RPGs, because some RPGs just look better with like traditional, top-down graphics, or traditional top-down graphics, basically. But a 2.5D is not bad. It's not out of the order. It's not terrible. I think it generally works here. See, I think this overworld looks fine. I think I would say it looks better on the PS4. There's a lot of weird foliage pop in, as you would expect, but I think this game looks pretty good here in the overworld. Yeah, that pop-in is really noticeable here, but I think the background generally looks very good. I did not play very much in the handheld mode. I'm playing this obviously docked, mounted and such. And this is the first town in the game. So when we go out to the forest, you'll see how everything looks in the background. We'll get into some fights later. We're going to start with the fights here in the first area, then work our way back to the Cross City where we started this video. But I kind of wanted to backtrack a bit so you can see how the first 3 areas of the game looked. And I think this is the entire area that would be available in the demo, which I also downloaded on the Switch. But you can see in the background, the trees in the background, they don't look that great. I guess the mountains look okay. But I'd say all the trees in the background looked way better on the PlayStation 4 than they did here, as you would expect. It's not just the resolution. I think it's the detail they got in those trees. So they dropped that down a bit, but whatever. But this area looks pretty decent. Of course, it's more crowded. We can't move the camera here, so keep that in mind. Bottom right-hand corner of the screen, you can see the mini-map. I'll mention this a bit later, just as a tangent. This game was on clearance in April of 2024. It was on clearance for like, what, $20 at... Yeah, the PS5 version and the Switch version were on clearance at Walmart for like $20, which means the game probably failed. It probably bombed. So we hit the enemy from behind. So again, in the original game, this wasn't an option. Or at least it was more randomized. Here, if the enemies are wandering around the dungeon areas or in the overworld, you can sneak up on them from behind. If you initiate contact with them while their back is turned, you get the initiative during this fight. I'm going to play as Saris. Just a second. How do I switch? Wrong button. Hit the wrong button. So I'm gonna have to make Saris the leader. Give me a second. Saris is the slowest person in the party, so she's gonna be a liability. So what I'll do is I'll make her the leader, and anytime there's a fight, the other two people will wander around and fight on their own. Again, this is not unusual for a AAA Japanese RPG of this vintage. The mid to late 90s, you started seeing RPGs embrace the action RPG in the sense of they weren't just menu-driven games. You can't play this as a menu-driven game. As you saw here in the original fight, you're able to initiate a menu during the fight. I'll switch this up a little bit because I want to establish... okay, Celine's the guest, so she can't be chosen, huh? She's supposed to be a part of our party permanently. Well, I mean, eventually she'll come back. Because I know she's... Spoiler alert, she doesn't die. You can choose her later in the game. Tactics. Party formation. 1 to 4 characters. Yep, just like in the original game. Party formation screen can be reached in the tactics menu. I'm not switching around. I want to make her the leader. Run around and evade sounds good. Formations allow bonus effects. Accumulated spheres are shared by all formations. I don't remember this being in the original game. But again, remember, this is a top-down strategy game. So who's the leader? Oh, X. She can be the leader. So we can have one person in our party with the L and R button. You have one person in your party, 2, or all 3, which is what we're doing. Press the right stick to get help. So all this help was not available in the original game. So all these quality of life features were good. I would argue in 1998, most Japanese RPG players were savvy enough to figure most of this stuff out by reading the manual or buying a strategy guide, which is what most of us did back in the mid-90s. I did not have a strategy guide for this game, but I did use an FAQ for certain areas because the dungeons in this game were pretty good for the era. In other words, they were complex. They were complex enough so that you could get lost, but they weren't so ridiculously complicated that you would get lost unless you made a map. So you didn't have to make a map to navigate these dungeons, but they did a pretty good job of making them, sort of maze-friendly with some decent loot in there if you poked around. So I was not opposed to that. There's a red enemy over there. I got gold. Hooray. Let's pick a fight with this dude. Okay, let me see what the combat has. Just a second. I want to be able to switch characters during combat. Tutorial. Again, I went through all this in the demo video on the PlayStation 4 demo. So we can go into... that's a more hand-holdy tutorial in that video. For this is just, like I said, it's a frame rate test. So I'm just setting the table a little bit. Select the characters already. Yep, we did that. Where's the combat? There we go. Press X to open the battle menu. L and R to use symbology. It's magic. A to normal attack, that's fine. There's also a dodge button. We'll get to that later. Okay. Strategy. Because I was expecting more than that. Yeah, I thought I was supposed to be able to switch. Because she's a guest, I'm not able to switch to her. If she's a guest, I guess I can't switch to her. Okay. Not using a spell. Oh, Claude's down, Claude's down. Yeah, we got a problem. Yeah, I can't choose Celine. Probably should have saved my game. Good thing there was an autosave. Maybe we shouldn't pick a fight with these guys. Hint to win. Equip accessories. Game over. So we'll try that. So I get sent back to camp, huh? So I can't choose Celine as a player? I guess don't pick any fights then. So can I run away? Escape. Sounds like a good idea. Escape. Yeah, Claude's taking a bunch of hits to the face. These guys are bad. Okay, let's just fight the regular guy. Sounds like a better idea. Where's the map? There it is. Had to press start. So I can't choose Celine? I thought I made her the leader. Yeah, guess I forgot to save it. Yeah, I probably forgot to save it. Let's try again. Sup? So I can make her the leader. Bada boom. Didn't even get a chance to fight. So the MVP, the camera zooms in on the MVP. You know how it is. The Star Ocean game. You always gotta see who the MVP is. Now, for people who are familiar with the era, this game was apparently... I remember the first game in the franchise was released at the end of the Super Famicom's run. I believe it was the largest Famicom cartridge ever. 6 megabytes, I want to say. 48 megabits, for people who are keeping track of the math. So it was a bigger game than Street Fighter 2. Like, can we get Reina to stop using magic? Yeah, she's burning through all of her magic. You don't want to waste it on these mobs. So apparently this game was developed in the spirit of Tales of Phantasia, which never came out in the Super Nintendo here. But it came out on the Game Boy. I want to say it was localized for the Game Boy Advance. I played a bit of it back in the day. That game was apparently, it was an action RPG that had a side view. And at the time it came out, it had a lot of voice samples in it, which is like Street Fighter 2. And the like I said, it's like a traditional Japanese RPG, but the combat took place on a 2D plane, side view. And it was apparently one of the highest rated, or one of the most it was the most highly rated game by Nintendo of Japan's evaluators. Which I mentioned because, remember, this was an era when Dragon Warrior 3 and 4 and 5. Dragon Quest. In 1988, I want to say, Dragon Quest kind of established the fact that Japan was like really, really, really into RPGs. And by the time Final Fantasy IV came out on the Super Famicom, Nintendo was saying, look, this is the console you want. We can do what the Genesis can't. We can give you that cinematic experience with our 3D visuals and our Mode 7 visuals and our highly advanced chip-tuned audio chip provided by Sony, back when they were on good terms with Nintendo, I guess. But yeah, I mean, that chip gave you the experience you would have wanted if you were an RPG fan. Because apparently when the Super Famicom was developed, they were saying RPGs are incredibly popular. Let's make this console suitable for the kinds of next-generation RPGs we want to make. So yeah, your Final Fantasy IVs and your Dragon Quest IVs, and eventually you wind up getting your maybe your Wizardries if you cared about Wizardry and Might and Magic back then. But I mean, I want to say Arcana was a launch title on the Famicom and on the Super Nintendo. It was a dungeon crawler. Don't remember it being any good. Apparently it had a decent soundtrack, but apparently the combat was really slow and tedious. But again, it was an example of the kind of game that developers wanted to get a whole bunch of on the Super Famicom. What they said it was ultimately going to be made as a console that was suitable for people who liked RPGs first and foremost. And on top of that, it can also play your Marios and your Zeldas. So sure. And Tales of Phantasia was probably like the ne plus ultra of what Nintendo was going for. They got Wolf Team out there to say, okay, we're going to make an action RPG with, you know, the sensibilities of a fighting game in a way. And of course, Tales of Phantasia was a massive hit. And it was trying to make RPGs more accessible by having this sort of real-time combat. In that case, it was a 2D plane. So this game comes out on the Super Nintendo, and apparently it had sort of a top-down view, which you can kind of see here, although it looks more like a belt scroll. Like you move up and down the Z-axis, and you fight enemies in a 2D view, like Double Dragon. But I want to say the original Star Ocean game on the Famicom had a top-down view. Again, never got released here. The PlayStation Portable got the re-release. But I do think that we aren't going to go into any of these places. I mean, I guess we could save our game. How's our magic? Yeah, we got all our magic back, so that's good. Let me change up some of these tactics so Raina doesn't keep eating all of her magic. Strategy. Don't use MP. Or how about... whatever. Fight with good bad, whatever. As long as she doesn't eat up all of her magic, we'll be fine. Did I mention that I'm a massive fan of the soundtrack? Is that... whatever you gotta do to get through the night, go, honey. We'll go along with that. Ooh, give me that. I'm gonna steal your berries. You know what they say, the blacker the berry. Right, Celine? Sorry, what's your name? Celine. I keep calling her Celis. Wasn't her name Celis in the original game? I mean, I'll pull out the footage. I don't have any footage, but I'm sure it's out there. They probably renamed her Celine. No. I guess in my mind, I thought she was always named Ceres, or Ceres, C-E-R-E-S. Oh well, probably it's a more appropriate name. This might be like an Aerith versus... it might be like an Aerith versus Eris thing from Final Fantasy VII, if you remember that. So go out to the overworld again. Anything over here? Maybe not. We'll see how it goes. So we'll pick a few fights. He whooped him too quickly. Okay. I got spectacles. So yeah, so apparently this was the original game was the largest Super Nintendo cartridge of all time. Never came out in the United States, because remember, before Final Fantasy VII blew the doors off everything back in 1997, I think it was, in this country, that game changed everything. I think it sold 1 million copies here in the States. Maybe it sold 500,000, but at some point, like, there was a concession, finally, that back in the Super Nintendo era, all the time and effort that was spent localizing these games, selling them at ridiculously high prices, was it Pokemon? kind of wandering around in this forest. But they're not going to jump out and attack us or anything. There's a treasure chest up there, so we'll see if we can grab that. But before then, it's like, you know what? Squaresoft was like, you know what? We really don't want to spend like a whole bunch of... I can't get up there, can I? How do I get up there? We'll figure it out. There might be a side entrance. I wouldn't be shocked if there were a side entrance. But I guess they figured that, you know what? Why go through all this time and invest all these resources in trying to localize a game that's only going to sell like 100,000 copies, ideally? I think we get some of our magic points and our health back every time we fight an enemy. Or every time we beat an enemy. Like every time we beat a mob, I think. I'll check that out. I'll double check that. Because obviously Reina used some magic a second ago. So I don't know when she's going to get it back. I need to tell her to stop dropping those balls. You can improve combat skills. Spend battle points to improve or learn combat skills. Be turned on or off. Randomly boost defense. Yeah, again, these are the knobs and switches and buttons and toggles that a lot of the developers' games had. Tri-Ace or Trios. Tri-Ace is the original developer of this game on the PlayStation 1. And they were kind of stupid with like adding a whole bunch of like... Valkyrie profiled a bunch of this. A bunch of knobs and switches and skills that randomly pop during combat. Random buffs that were pretty common. Or like minor upgrades to a particular character's skill. Sidestep. Effect chance up. Increases movement speed. Sounds good. Randomly teleports character to exact position. Sounds amazing. Reduces daze time. So some of this stuff sounds like stuff I should actually use. Cuts casting time for spells. Sounds amazing. I would definitely use that. Randomly increases spell damage. Randomly prevents incantation from being erupted, but not guaranteed. If casting at the same time as an enemy and the enemy spell goes off first, there's a chance your spell will interrupt theirs. Okay. Again, that kind of stuff sounds kind of interesting. The problem is that it might not matter in some situations. Like, the complaint that a lot of people have when this game came out on the PlayStation 1 was that there's no tactical considerations to the combat. It's just button mashing. You run around, you mash the attack button. It's not really that sophisticated. It's not an action game like Legend of Mana or anything, like Kingdom Hearts or Legend of Mana. But it wasn't sophisticated enough to make all this other stuff matter because the combat was too dumb. And that's arguably the problem with most Star Ocean games, except Last Hope, which is actually decent. The combat in this game was never that great in the original game. Maybe they rebalanced it to make it competent, I don't know. This isn't a game you play because it's like brilliantly complex. It's a game that you play because the music's good. And you have like 50 different endings or whatever. There's like a bunch of different character interactions that are apparently important. Which was, I guess that was important when Tales of Phantasia came out. Because again, back in the mid-90s, on the Super Famicom and the Super Nintendo, the idea was, hey, an RPG with all these features in it was potentially very interesting. Randomly guarantees attacks to land. Randomly boosts attack power. So a lot of these are similar, like the hastened speech. Stuff like that. Special arts. Spend battle points to improve special arts and spells. Again, so there's like experience points that you just automatically increase your attributes as you level up. But you also get battle points after every fight, which you can then spend here. Again, potentially interesting. Because it makes your spells and skills stronger if you need it. Improvement bonus, it increases the healing. Does it use more magic points, though? No, it doesn't. That's good. So it still uses 10 magic points. Air Slash. Yeah, unleashes a shockwave. Like a Terry Bogard in Fatal Fury. Anyway, get to that. Again, more 90s video game references. That's why you're here, isn't it? 90s video game references and random anime stuff. Support characters improve, I see. You'll learn a super specialty. More efficient to work towards a super specialty you want to learn, but guaranteed to give a strategic advantage. Okay, so raises HP by 20. Oh, I don't remember this. Lowers SP needed for each skill. Potentially interesting. Raises MP by 5 per level. Balancing raises... So it raises a bunch of attributes. Huh. Okay. These are skill points. Lowers SP needed for skill. Okay. You probably wouldn't want to waste all this on a guess. We'll get around to that. Yeah, so stuff like that. Again, does it matter in combat? Not early on. Eventually, it probably matters if you're doing some optional dungeons. If you're playing on the harder difficulty levels, you might want to build a certain way. I don't know if it even matters. Because ultimately, this game's about running up to an enemy and punching it in the face. Or casting a magic spell before you get attacked. That kind of thing. It's not that sophisticated. It's not that deep. I'm going to be honest. The original game was not that deep. Yeah, I think that treasure chest is over there. You have to take a side exit. You have to exit. You have to take a side exit out of town to get to that treasure chest, probably. We'll see what's up. I do love the song, of course. Let's switch up the soundtrack. Again, as much as I love the soundtrack, I do want to hear what they did to the music. I do want to hear how they changed it. None of the arrangements sound better, but I'm biased. This is one of my favorite soundtracks of all time. Yeah, they make the music sound a bit pluckier and less. They dampen down some of the resonance, which is unfortunate because that was one of the best things. The engineering on the soundtrack was amazing, and they modified it. The melody's still good though. Oh, they changed the instruments. Ugh. Can't go down there anymore? Can't go down there anymore. Thought there was a secret passage down there. Maybe it's down here. Yeah, the music's disappointing. Now this kind of sounds like a Sakuraba song. Lots more organ. Yep. It sounds like Sakuraba organ. What she said. The combat isn't that difficult here. We got rabbit risotto. Or is that a recipe we just learned? So I guess the enemies aren't really tough in this part of the game. What's our difficulty level, by the way? Galaxy, which I believe that's the hardest difficulty level at the start of the game. I want to say there's a universe. In the original game, there's a universe difficulty level, which is unlocked when you beat the original game. When you beat the final boss on Galaxy difficulty, you unlock another difficulty level, and if you beat that, I believe you actually unlock the sound test. But it's stupid complicated. Apparently, you only get the ending when you beat the game on the universe difficulty level, I believe. The ending in this case being one of the greatest songs of all time, We Form in Crystals. It's an all-timer. Like, anyone who feels some kind of way about Daddy Mulk should listen to that song. This is another all-timer. The problem is that it's very 90s new age, which is why some people won't like it. Okay, I'm pretty sure I just came here, but okay, maybe we weren't supposed to go that way. Maybe we should have gotten some more loot while we were in there. I mean, I can clear this place out. I ain't scared. Might as well practice the combat. We're gonna level up too. Why not? I don't remember who the fourth party member is that we pick up. Because when I played this game on the PlayStation Portable, I only played the first 4 or 5 hours. The soundtrack did not work, by the way. They really ruined that soundtrack. You can tell they mucked up the sound cord. They mucked up the audio. I think it was audio emulation. They really mucked that up, and I was really disappointed with it. Like, by comparison, Valkyrie Profile was pretty much perfect. They nailed the music in that game for the PlayStation Portable version. But for some reason, the emulation of the soundtrack for Star Ocean 2 does not work at all. I don't know how they screwed it up. If I'll pull out my PlayStation Portable eventually, because I do want to play that game again. I will do some rips. I'll see if I can get some rips of the PlayStation Portable version so you can hear the difference between the music. So you can hear the difference in the music between the two games. I want to say the original PlayStation game had Dolby surround sound. This game's got 5.1, I think. I'll double check. Does it say here on the box? No. I am glad they included the Japanese voice acting, but obviously there wasn't any cutscene voice acting in the original game. It doesn't say here. Yeah, they did not improve the music for the fanfare, unfortunately. I'll double check and see if it's Dolby. It doesn't say if it's Dolby surround sound here. But yeah, the PlayStation game. A lot of PlayStation games had Dolby surround sound in it, even though they were using chiptunes. But there are Super Nintendo games with Dolby surround sound. You know how it is. In fact, I have a Dolby encoder over here. I have to hook it up to see how my Turrican. I have to see how Super Turrican sounds. Because I got that Turrican anthology here. I'm gonna go back and play that eventually. Give me a second. What's that under? System. What's under system, Toothless? So I guess it's supposed to be just Dolby 5. It's probably Dolby 5.1. I mean, there's no option for mono. I mean, who would ever play a game in mono? But of course, back in the day, your TV probably only had a mono speaker on it. But this game, the sound mix on this game is begging for Dolby surround sound. It's really amazing. Like I said, but games like Star Ocean, Final Fantasy Tactics, Xenogears, they really nailed the audio engineering in those games. Like the audio production on those games is always superb. Okay, Reina needs to stop popping out those magic spells. She's not taking damage, but she's probably gonna. I think we get our health back when we level up. Okay, Rain, I'm gonna need you to stop spitting spells. So hold on a second. Don't use MP. Yeah, the dungeon crawling music in this game is very good. As is most of the boss music in this game too. I mean, this game has some of the best boss music you'll hear in any video game. As I recall, because I haven't heard the music in context. I've heard it in the sound test. I have not heard it in the game. I could not play this game for more than 20 hours. I gave it a chance because the music was so good, but even back then, I was very gentle. I was very charitable to Japanese RPGs back then. I feel like hundreds of them, but this was not one of the good ones, despite the soundtrack. But everything about this game, except for the music, was terrible. It was not a good game. Sorry. Yeah, that's a good emulation. Where's the difficulty? Yeah. There it is, Universe. Okay, so Universe is the hardest difficulty level, okay. Now, why would you play on the harder difficulty level? Maybe when you get deeper into the game, you want more of a challenge. Yeah, sure, but because again, the game wasn't that deep. We'll go back and before we end the video, we'll leave this area because I just wanted to gather some loot while I was here. But you're getting a good sense for the game, right? I was probably gonna do an hour of this game. Seems like such a waste going through these dungeons just to get freaking blackberries. Like, how expensive are these things if I actually just buy them in a shop? Like, that's always the economy in these games, right? You open a treasure chest, there could be something in there that's worth, like, a dozen battles. Like, if you get a treasure chest, it should be to get an item that doesn't drop or that would take multiple battles to earn. Otherwise, you're just dropping crap that I can get from any battle. What's the point of even opening the chest? That's just basic, like, that's just basic balancing. It's a basic balancing question, I would argue. Defense up. I'm not paying attention to any of that crap in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Because again, the complaint about this game was that doesn't matter, really. We'll try out the difficulty later when we get to near the end of the video. Oh, remember, there's also I don't think there was a map in the original game either. So again, it's one of those things where you add features that make the game way easier to deal with, way less annoying. Because it wasn't that hard to make your own map in this game, but I don't remember there being a map in this. There was an overworld map, but I just don't remember there being maps of the dungeons. Back attack. And we're good. I have to double check that dodge we got here, because obviously that dodge is not in the original game. So again, I'm wondering how they balanced the game to account for it. And again, the problem with this game's grind is that if you need to grind up your characters, is the combat, sophisticated enough to justify that grinding? Now, at this point in the game, maybe on a harder difficulty level it is. But we'll find out later. And I think when you get back to that save point, you can open the camping menu. I think you can do, make food for your party members to give them temporary buffs, stuff like that. There are 3 types of special arts. Damages shields. Shields! Who cares about shields? Like, eventually later in the game, maybe it matters. I don't know. Like, again, for $20, I would buy this game just for the music. It is a phenomenal soundtrack if you're into this new age crap. And of course, you're getting the arrangement as a bonus. I personally don't think the arrangement's going to improve the music at all. Like, I would buy this game for $20, absolutely, because it's a known quantity. I know the music is great. I just don't think the rest of the game's worth playing. Like, I sold this game on the PlayStation 1 like a decade or a half ago to buy a Wii or a 360. I don't remember. But there were just so many just mediocre RPGs that I bought in the early 2000s. They just were not good. No. We'll do another breadcrumb save. Try to sneak up on us, huh? Well, so long as I faced him before we made contact. I think we got all of our health back when we went to that save point. I'll double check, see if that's a thing. So you're getting a lot of the combat, as you're probably figuring out. It's not very difficult, so. You already saved the game, so let's do a quick check on something. Of course, the problem is if you increase the difficulty level, the enemies just eat most of your magic. Because at that point, it's like, okay, the enemies take more damage, they hit you harder, and you have to save your game more often. You have to heal yourself more often. Like, I don't know. That's not a good way to make the game harder. Because that was arguably one of the problems with games like Phantasy Star 2 on the Genesis Megadrive, where it's like, the enemies weren't hard, it's just that you couldn't target specific enemies. You couldn't target specific enemies, and they hit hard, and they constantly did damage to you. They whittled you down constantly. So you had to constantly. So the enemies weren't difficult. It's just that you had to increase your odds of survival by getting into random fights with those enemies. Because again, blind random encounters against enemies you can't target specifically. If you're attacked by 4 grasshoppers, you can't choose which grasshopper you want to target. So the enemies would constantly whittle you down. So you constantly had to grind. So you had to constantly keep yourself stocked with healing potions and magic replenishing potions, because you would need magic spells to heal yourself constantly. So you constantly needed to buy that stuff. And to earn the money to buy it, you had to constantly get into fights with these enemies that weren't that difficult, but kept whittling you down. I took a spear to the face. Oh well. So again, the game wasn't hard, it was just a grind. Like, I played 3 hours of that game on this channel. And probably an hour of it was like legitimately interesting exploration. But even then, the exploration was annoying because the enemy encounters, the blind enemy encounters were constantly interrupting you. Like, I was rewinding the video multiple times just to avoid enemies from spawning, because the game kept spawning blind encounters, and I was trying to find my way out of the dungeon. These stupid corkscrew dead dungeons that went on forever. So yeah, I know some people like that stuff because they were like 10 years old, and this was like the first RPG they played, but I mean, we tolerated a lot of crap in the late 80s, early 90s when it came to RPG design, to be honest, and I'm going to play Final Fantasy 1 on this channel once I dig out my NES Classic again. But it's like, there's a lot of crap we put up with. Well, I didn't get any guild missions. Probably should have done that. To retain rewards, useful for... Ooh! I don't remember these in the original game. Buy 10 battles, that was easy. So yeah, I got 200 gold. I get like 30 gold per fight, don't I? Defeat an enemy under 5 seconds, using art 30 times. I haven't done that. Use customization 30 times. Use appraising 30 times. It's that kind of thing. Beginner stuff. Defeat an enemy under 3 seconds. Easily done. I tend to believe this will take a while. Because they're going to give me 20,000 gold if I do it. Reach Master Chef. There's a Cooking Master mini game in the soundtrack. Fun fact, the Star Ocean 2 soundtrack that originally came out in Japan did not include the Cooking Master song. Or let me be more specific. Actually, no, let me rephrase that. I want to say the sound test for Star Ocean on the PlayStation, the built-in sound test, did not include the Cooking Master song, as I recall. Learn every formation. How do I learn formations? The Devil's Aria. Is that like the, what is that? What's that Tri-Ace dungeon called? That's in every... Yeah, Valkyrie Profile, what is it called? The Seraphic Gate. Is there a Seraphic Gate in this game? Because every other Tri-Ace game seems to have it. It's like the Bitter Black Dungeon, and if you remember Dragon's Dogma, there's a Bitter Black Dungeon in it. It's basically like a high level. It's like a dungeon with a bunch of high level enemies in it. It's like a tower. It's like you go down every floor, the enemies get harder. Your traditional, mystery dungeon design. Every level you go down, it's harder enemies. Which reminds me, I need to play Claddon Returns. This is Sengoku again, because that's actually a good Japanese action RPG. I played like 10 hours. I love that game. I played like a dozen hours of it. I really love it. Why am I not playing that game right now? I admit, I'm kind of just burning through a whole bunch of rentals right now. So I'll be the first to admit that. I can delete that last game save. I mean, I admit the only reason I'm in here, the only reason I'm in this dank place to get treasure. Select. I think I got all the treasure here. There's another area up there. What does that plus sign mean? There's a plus sign there next to the save point. Huh. I don't know what that meant. Is there something special I can do here that I can't do anywhere else? I increased the difficulty, by the way. Let me double check and see how much loot we're getting from the enemies. I want to say there was a boss in here. Yeah, there was a boss in here. Give me that treasure. So there was a boss in here and I already beat him. Should I equip the new gear? I mean, like I said, I'll play dumb and the game forces me to play smart. I have to pay attention to what that tutorial told me. Symbologist, which means Celine Dion here wants this. I can't remove her gear because she's a guest. Again, it's a Japanese RPG. What are you going to do? By the way, I never understood why she was wearing that shower curtain around her shoulders. I mean, it's kind of a cute design, I suppose. I just never knew why she wore it. Again, this is the 90s. Japanese fantasy designs were always kind of weird. So again, they really, I want to say they simplified the character design for this PlayStation Portable game here because they had more animated cutscenes here. So within the budget, you know, they were trying to put these animated cutscenes in the game. So they simplified all the character design so you could actually see the characters. Because in the original, this is how it shows in the original game. In the original game, again, the original game did not have any cutscenes in it. Or at least it didn't have any human beings in those cutscenes. It was all just crappy, 12 FPS cutscenes of like crumbling buildings and birds flying and like the camera zoomed out on a planet or a camera zooming out on a spaceship. Like they would show models. They would show models. They would show environments. They wouldn't show human beings. Everything just felt really depopulated. Like later in the game, there's an earthquake that takes place later in the game. I think it takes place in Cross City, where we're going to visit later on. And I want to say that earthquake has no human beings. There's no one running away from the rubble. It's just buildings crumbling and rocks falling. Which again lends to that whole, sort of budget feel where it's like they're trying to make a AAA game here. But it's like they didn't even bother to invest in the money to animate humans. Then again, Final Fantasy VII really didn't make the humans look good at all. I mean, the CGI, the humans in those CGI cutscenes in Final Fantasy VII look terrible. So which way should we go? Pick a direction. I don't think it's going to matter. First of all, are we getting the... Hold on, something here. I don't remember this being here. Oh, okay. It's supposed to be a collectible food. Oh, so we get experience points for investigating that. Okay. That's cute. I don't remember that being in the original game. But it feels kind of like Xenoblade Chronicles, which is a much better game, obviously. Yeah, the B button is for dodging and the A button is for whacking. Fine. So we got 24 full for that. And 30. I'm supposed to be keeping track of this. If nothing else, this video will clarify how much experience you get per fight. Like per mob, you know what I mean? We can't go this way for some reason. So I guess that'll be important later. Oh, maybe it's an optional dungeon. Again, don't remember if that was in the original game. So what unlocks it? I have no idea. Yeah, not mentioned here on the map. But now I know it's here. Again, if I played this game, it would just get dumped in my backlog again. But yeah, for $20, sure, I'll buy this game. You probably heard that by now in May of 2024, you probably heard that Square Enix is going through some crap right now. Apparently they lost like $100-some million in the last quarter on either canceled projects, I think they said. I mean, let's put it this way. You can't blame Valkyrie Elysium. That game came out in 2022, as I recall. Yeah, that game came out at the end of 2022. and it didn't do well. Apparently, I guess it bombed because they didn't bother to include it on their quarterly report. So maybe it just didn't sell that very well. I mean, I own it, obviously. I got it for like $20, so I think it's worth it. But I mean, let's be honest about what happened there. I played the demo. I liked it a lot. I rented it from the library, put 5 more hours into it. I said, you know what? I like this game. It might not get way better, but it was good. It's good. Let's hear the music. Let's hear the music that's actually good. Low key. This is low key one of my favorite songs in the soundtrack, actually. Like, it's very unassuming, but it has kind of a Star Wars feel to it. Like a C-3PO and R2-D2 wandering Mos Eisley feel. And as I said before, this music I associate this music with the 4th character we meet. I think her name is Precious or Precis. I think her name is supposed to be Precious. She's a kid. She's a kid tech. She's a kid engineer who makes like a robot. And when we first meet her, she's chasing this robot that's kind of gone AWOL in a sort of a harmless way, but he's basically like as I recall, he was an animal who left the pen. That's how she treats him. So this music to me always had kind of a plucky vibe to it that I love. It's very understated. And it literally just repeats itself and adds a drum to the end. It literally repeats itself and just adds a drum roll to the second run. It's not a very complex song, but it's very jaunty. I dig it. But yeah, the arrangement screws it up. And that's unfortunate. Are we gonna buy it? Let's see if we can buy some of this crap. Actually, how's our health? Yeah, we're completely healed. No complaints. We leveled up like in the old days. That's how you're supposed to learn the combat. But the combat wasn't that hard. From the hardest difficulty level. Jewelry shop and weapon shop. We're not gonna buy anything. We might sell some things. Brass knuckles. I love. First of all, isn't Raina supposed to be like a monk or something? She's a farm girl with brass knuckles. I love it. I mean, it's an anime. Of course, every farm girl's got freaking brass knuckles. That's the kind of video game this is. It's a game where a farm girl fights with brass knuckles. An anime alien chick, an anime alien farm girl has brass knuckles. Look at that little animation she did with her feet. That was not in the original game, as I recall. But it's a nice touch. But these sprites do look a lot like the original game. So there is that. It's got that nostalgia going for it. So I got both of them. I forgot to double check the price of those things, by the way. Just a second. Because remember, we're getting like 25. We're getting like a quarter, 25 full for every fight. 25 full for a fight, huh? Buy blackberries. So we got like we get like blueberries and blackberries from the treasure chest. So I guess these are expensive enough so that it's worth it to get it from a treasure chest. We already own 2 of them. Yeah, we got a bunch of blueberries from the treasure chest. So that's like 3, and it's like 3 mobs give us enough money to buy another blueberries. What's the point of that? And it needs to be refined. So I guess we'll learn. I guess again, this is just a frame rate test. We're not going to do all that, crafting crap. We'll do that later. This is just to see how the combat is. But again, I'm playing dumb till the game forces me to play smart. Why should I waste my time in these menus if the combat doesn't require it? Like, is the game going to require us at some point to level up any of these skills so that we can do all this other stuff? I don't know. It's one of those games. Okay, we'll listen to the arranged music. But again, this is a good chunk of the game. So we'll save the game here, and then we'll end this test video. Again, I just wanted to see how the game played. because I'm taking this back to the library because I'm gonna buy it eventually, but I just kind of wanted to see how it held up on the Switch without the time limit or the locked areas that weren't available in the demo, because that was gonna hold us back. Obviously, it's supposed to be a treasure chest around here. I can't get it. Okay, fine. Let's just fight this guy. We're not scared. We already saved our game. We're on the universe difficulty level. We're not scared. Down he goes. So again, this is the hardest difficulty.
What do I need to do to level up? 876. This will make it work. So you can just farm, I guess. Farm experience points. So once you get past all the lore-based nonsense to disguise the fact that you're just using mana and experience points in different classes, I guess it makes more sense. Eat it. So 80 for that. And I died over here. Not over there, but... yeah, let's go around the corner. Let's get the haze and come back. Wait, did you see me? Yeah, he saw me. Alright. Come and get it. Whoops, that was bad. Alright, he's got wild. Bad aim. Get it. Whoa, that's bad. Ran out of stamina. It's got real. Yeah, just got real. See, I'm pretty good at video games. And I got a lost broadsword, so I might have to, I have to save it. Again, I tried to restart the camera, and the game's freaked out. Eat it. Not dead yet. This has got wild. So I got 2 lost broadswords. Might want to save my game just for that. We're good. Ish. Okay, we're leaving. We're out. We're going to head back home. Screw this. Cancel. So I can't just hold down the dodge button. I can't just hold down the dodge button. Oh well. To run, which would be nice. Yeah, I left this one behind. Yeah, so we'll do a deeper, Okay, they got sent to storage because I was carrying too much crap. Which makes sense, but I got my haze back, so I'm able to get my experience back. Yes, we can't run, but just eating a bunch of stamina and then just burning to the next destination. It doesn't work that way. Alright, so I don't have my partner here to help me farm. That's okay, we'll make it work. Held up, frame rate held up during the hottest parts, and that's what counts. I gotta crowd the camera though. That's really the issue here. But yeah, I think we held 60, so we can crank up the settings for a future video. I'll see if it runs on the laptop just to confirm I get a decent performance out of that. But yeah, 720p runs fine on this desktop. So like I said, we'll crank it up later. I recorded this audio with my Plantronics headset. The game was recorded at 720p 60 on my J5 Create 4K UHD capture box. Passed through to the television in 4K TV. So that's how I played the game. It was captured using the camera app on my quad-core Celeron Windows 10 laptop, the education laptop. If it dropped frames, that might also be because of the camera app. But it should have been fine with this game. The PC is a quad-core quad-core i5, 3.2 gigahertz processor. There are 3 sticks of RAM in here, 12 gigs total, 2133 megahertz RAM speed. It's a G4 6 gigabyte NVIDIA 3050 video card. No external pin power needed. Just plugged it right to the PCIe slot, I believe. I had to remove the USB-C cable from the motherboard. Basically, there are some front ports that have USB 3 on them. There are like a bunch of ports on this desktop, and I'd remove the USB-C 3 connection on those USB-C ports because they were taking up space on the motherboard that I needed to fit this video card into the case. Get me started on that OEM nonsense. I'm afraid of crap like that.